Hey everyone. Right, today we're going to talk about something very important. Odds are very high that you shoot stop motions and you're looking for help with Dragonframe or how to make your movements a bit smoother. This video is going to cover both of those things. Dragonframe is the software that I use when I shoot stop motions, so I'm very familiar with it and I understand it way more than I understand any other stop motion software. Odds are pretty high that this is relevant to other stop motion software, but I only use Dragonframe, so it is going to be specific to Dragonframe, but the concept should translate over to other stop motion software. Now, I do stream a lot of my stop motion shoots, my photo shoots, and my editing over on Twitch. Be sure to come over and check that out. I'm happy to talk about anything, answer any questions you might have in the chat when I am streaming. This is probably one of the things when I first started shooting stop motions that I just couldn't quite wrap my head around. Actually, that's wrong. I understood it, but I didn't understand how to do it. I understood that if I needed something to move from point A to point B in 1 second, that it had to move in pretty evenly spaced movements in order to make it look right. I kind of learned Dragonframe on my own, and I was doing things a very hard way of making this work. For example, one of the early ways that I did it was I just made my grid overlay that you see in Dragonframe have as many spaces between point A and point B that I needed. That was not ideal. It worked, and the movements worked. It went from point A to point B in, say, 12 shots, and it was not natural, but it was smooth, and it looked right. It wasn't until a few months later that I had always used the drawing tools in Dragonframe for various things. They're very helpful, and I'll probably do another video on some of the other ways that I use the drawing tools because they're amazing and they're infinitely beneficial for almost anything you're doing within Dragonframe. But it wasn't until I started really playing around and I discovered a button called the increment button that you can apply to any of your drawings that you do in Dragonframe. What this does is you specify how many increments you want. So for example, if you're shooting 1 second at 12 frames a second, you need 12 to go from point A to point B in 12 shots. It will give you evenly spaced things to move smoothly. And then I discovered that you can also ease this, which I'm going to show you. So if you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to do a lot more tutorials on Dragonframe because it's an incredibly underrated software. I say underrated, it's used by like huge animation studios like Lakai. So it's not really underrated. But I think for our industry of stop motion, so I'm a photographer that just does stop motion animation as half my business. So I'm not an animation studio. But I think for people like me, Dragonframe's not well known enough. And for the price that it is, it's an amazing software. I'll have a link in the description below. I'm not affiliated with Dragonframe. I just absolutely love it. And for the price, it's amazing. So let's dive into Dragonframe and let me show you what's going on. Okay, here we are in Dragonframe. I've got a very simple scene set up because I was just shooting an animation and this was a part of it. So we're going to use this. As you can see on my screen here, I have got a Ritz cracker. So we want to move this Ritz cracker from roughly here over to, say, here. And we want to do it smoothly. This is where the drawing tools come into play with Dragonframe, and then especially the increments that you can do with the drawing tools in Dragonframe to make your movements smooth, evenly spaced, and natural looking. And it's really, really simple to do. Over here, you've got your drawing layers. We're going to add a new drawing layer, and we are going to take a line. We're going to make it a little bit thicker, and we're going to make it blue just so we can see it. So I want the edge of the Ritz cracker to go from here over to here, right? That's where we want our Ritz cracker to move. We want the edge, this front edge, to go from here over to here. Now, I typically shoot 12 frames a second. Most of my animations are for social media. They involve food, they involve products. They're not movies. So I don't tend to shoot at 24 frames a second, which is what you would shoot for a movie. I shoot at 12 frames a second, which is half that. So if we know we've got to go from here to here in 12 frames, which is 1 second, we're going to add increments. And that is down here. You have to have this highlighted. So this is highlighted. You click on the increments, and now you have an option here, how many spaces you want. So we're going to make that 12. And you can see we've got now our 12 movements. So if we were just going to move this normally without any other modifications to it, we will move the Ritz cracker between each shot, this front edge, onto each one of these lines. And you can see it starts here. So the first shot would be nothing. Then we would move it here, and so on and so forth. So let's do that really quick and show you what this looks like, and then I'm going to show you another way to make that even better. Okay, so we're ready to take our first shot. We're going to take our first shot. We've not moved the Ritz cracker. So now we're going to take our second shot. We're going to move it to our next increment, which is right there. Take our next shot. We're going to move it on to our next increment, which is right here. Take our next shot. So on and so forth. Just keep moving it up to the next line. Take your shot, and off we go. Okay, we're down to our final 2 shots of using these increments for 1 second of footage, moving the Ritz cracker from point A to point B. That's the final shot. So now you can see it moves very evenly. It looks good. We've succeeded in what we want to do, moving it from point A to point B in 1 second, which is 12 shots. But it doesn't quite look natural. So let's fix that. Put our Ritz cracker back in its starting spot right here. So it moves evenly, but it doesn't move how things normally move. This is where you can do something called easing within Dragonframe, within the increments editor. So you can see I've still got the increment editor up over here. It's a curve. Well, it could be a curve. Right now it's a straight line, but you can see we've got these little handles on both sides. If I were to grab one of these, you can see that it starts spacing things out differently. So the more I drag this, the closer things get to the end of our movement. And if we drag this one, you can see it starts making the movements at the beginning smaller. Now, when something moves, it starts out slow, and when it gets to its ending point, it also slows down. So you want to move these little increments closer together for both. Now, I'm going to put it roughly about here at the starting point, and we're going to pull this to be roughly the same, but a little bit closer together at the end, because it's going to slow down to a bit more of a stop. Now you can see our increments are totally different than they were before. We still have 12. It's still going to take 1 second to move, but it's going to move very differently than it did a minute ago. We're going to take this shot just so we can see where the differences start. So we've got that frame. Now, right, we start with the Ritz cracker at the starting point. Now, when we move it, you're going to notice we're moving it a lot less before we get to that second increment. Then we're going to move it on to the next one. It's a little bit further away. Move it on to the next one, which is even further. They'll get a little bit further to start with, and then they're going to start coming in tighter. That's probably the furthest movement we've done. That one felt a little bit closer, but it's hard to say. This one is definitely closer, so it's starting to come closer together now. So now it's starting to slow down its movement. And now we'll see that they're getting much closer together. And because I made the ending of this movement closer together, the final couple are going to be much closer than we remembered them being at the start. So there's that one. And our last one. Okay, so we've shot that. Let's have a look at it. We rewind back. Okay, watch this. It's not perfect. I think for what the amount we're trying to move and how far we're trying to move, 12 frames isn't quite enough, but you can tell the difference. Let's get to the end. From this to this. Much more natural. So let's just watch it with looping. You can see the differences. And it's super easy to do. You can do this with any shape. Any line reference you make, you can do this. It will make your movements much more smooth, much more natural looking, and all around make your stop motions a lot better. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. I know it was just a lame little Ritz cracker moving from point A to point B. It was what I had left over from a different stop motion shoot I was doing today, so I figured we'll just use that. I just needed something to show you how to move from point A to point B and have it look not only smooth, but natural, as something would naturally move. Now, obviously, there's more to that than what I just did here. I mean, if you were to flick it, the amount that it's going to ease at the beginning is going to be massively different than what I just did. That was sort of if the Ritz cracker was going to walk and then stop walking. That was the sort of movement that I just gave it. I think it needed a little bit more than 12 frames to make it look even better, but you get the general idea. That increments tool and the easing can be applied to anything that you draw in Dragonframe. That's hugely important to understand because you can do a curve like this and have it move smoothly, ease in and out, and make it look awesome. You can do it with circles, which I am going to do a video specifically on that because there's a lot of really cool things you can do with spinning and moving in circles, and the possibilities are endless. I will do something on it, and I will do a whole video on all the drawing tools and the different ways I use them because they're insanely good if you know little tricks and little scenarios in which you should be using them. But anyways, I digress. I should let you guys go. Again, I stream a lot of this stuff over on Twitch. You can check that out here. Also, please subscribe if you haven't already. Give the video a like, and I will see you guys later.